Welcome to our program, Coach-to-Coach. Today's guest is Katie Adams. Katie is a fitness coach, nutritionist, gym owner, and transformational coach who helps people create lasting change from the inside out. Drawing on her journey of losing 100 pounds and keeping it off for more than 20 years, Katie combines physical wellness and deep personal transformation, helping people build confidence, resilience, and a life they genuinely love. Thanks for being here, Katie. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Coach-to-Coach.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. The way I like to kick these off is to ask what first sparked your interest in coaching?
It's a pretty layered question, so hopefully
Mm,
we're or answer. So hopefully we're ready for that. My full-time job currently is I own a gym, a strength and conditioning gym. I am a nutritionist and I am a full-time personal trainer. So my coaching life, it's multifaceted, right? So what started for me on just wanting to help people on the health and wellness side was let's create a business that people can come to and hopefully be excited and give fitness this, I don't know, like this curb appeal that isn't just boring going to the gym and like walking on the treadmill. So to like back up a little bit more, at my most unhealthy time, I was 250 pounds. I am currently about 100 pounds less than that. And
mm,
so through my journey, I always kind of felt like if I can motivate myself, right? Or if I can give myself the oomph to do these hard things, what if I did that for other people? And so what kind of started with, just doing group classes and then people want help with nutrition and I fell down that rabbit hole and wanted to share both my experience and learn new things. And so stepped into that. And what I've found to be true over the 15 years I've been a trainer, 13 years I've owned my gym, is you watch these beautiful physical transformations. You watch people step into, a body that they're like learning and maybe they're more proud of and they should be and all this hard work and then they're not satisfied.
mm,
And I kept running into like, okay, so we get this and then their self-talk was not great. It was like you trained new habits, you did these things, they're in the gym. And then what I was finding was people just really what was happening between their ears was more powerful than the physical transformation that had happened. And so for years, I'd talk with people, we'd, read a mindset book or we'd do these things and it worked. But what I was finding both for myself and for them is it didn't work on that negative inner talk that I had going. And I would take this information and it would, in my eyes, it stayed more surface level and it didn't dive into like real transformation. And for me, transformation is like our ability to do something profoundly different than we did before.
mm.
And so I stumbled upon in my gym world and the AJC world collided, and I was in a business mentorship with a company I work with, and one of my fast to forever friends introduced me. We became friends. We kind of started talking. I noticed when I talked to this person, like, wow, they're like this feels really different. Um, they're such an intuitive listener, and they're not in a hurry, and they remember these details. And I'm like, wow, so different than what I had experienced with other people. And I stumbled upon we'll call it a hard day, and their name popped into my head, and I sent them a message on Facebook, and we were very, very new friends. And I'm not an overly vulnerable person, so I feel like the universe pulled me this way.
Mm.
We have a conversation. He is in AJC. I'm like, I don't know what that means, but you seem like a nice person that cares about how Katie feels, right?
Yeah.
And that felt really new and different. And so I ended up hiring him as a coach to work on the document process and like figuring out judgments I had for myself.
Mm.
And I think I was 3 weeks into working with him and I was like, tell me about AJC. Tell me about like how can I help people on this level that I feel like, I'm kind of dancing with, but I'm not breaking into.
Mm.
And what I found to be true for me was the only way I was going to be able to like step into this coaching was to do the process myself. And so I would say like what really sparked it was I started seeing this profound change in myself. And are we ever all the way done growing, learning, and coaching ourselves? No. But what a wonderful thing to be able to help people, on the fitness wellness side and then tap into who they're being as a human. And
Mm,
I felt like, I for months had these thoughts of like I'd gone to Hawaii without my family, with my mom, and we did a lot of just really important work that needed to be done as like a mother-daughter.
mm,
And I don't think we would have ever been able to do that had I not been stepping into this process. So for me, what sparked it the most is like unlimited potential for everyone, right? Like if we can be centered in who we are, how much simpler can life be, right? It doesn't take away life's problems
yeah,
because life is life. But if our ability to look at it differently, look at it through love and service, I mean, my life has changed. So why not share that in little ripples out to the world?
absolutely. Yeah, I love your
Yeah.
story.
Thank you.
Yeah, my I've done a lot of training with Jamie Smart, and
Okay.
he uses the phrase subtractive psychology. It's
Hmm.
when you let go of all these judgments and weight that we carry around with us from, past experiences and relationships and
Yeah.
all the rest of it. Once you learn that you don't need to carry that around with you anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, you go through life much lighter, much freer. Um,
Yeah. And it just like it opens so many doors, right? Like
yeah,
it makes it where I feel like a lot of the message in the world is like to be human is to suffer, and like you've been through hard stuff, so like of course you feel this way, and it's like two things can be true, right? I can have gone through these hard things
yeah,
and I can still choose what my future is going to look like, right? And that was for me, that was like that light bulb moment of like, what?
yeah,
You can?
yeah. Amazing. I'm
Mhm.
really curious how your practice works. I mean, you've talked about kind of how it's part of the fitness, running a gym and being a personal trainer and things. I'm curious how that those two worlds kind of come together for your clients
Yeah.
and how you work
Yeah.
with people.
My practice itself is this is my first year in the AJC. So I am the newborn in the
Mm,
room, and I'm super, super open to that. For Ankish had pointed this out to me in such a loving way. There is really no difference in my coaching ability. It's just that it's going to funnel into a new area. So my practice and things, it's to be determined, right?
mm,
I'm currently the process that I have so far that I really enjoy is anytime anytime I have the opportunity, I aim for 6 to 8 conversations a week with anyone, right? So like just get comfortable listening, because I do think vulnerability is hard, and conversation is hard, and talking to someone that you don't know at all is a whole new experience. I believe that there's a lot of people that I was already having these really wonderful conversations with. I just hadn't really put thought into like, oh my gosh, this is what this level of coaching looks like.
mm,
And so what I've been doing with a couple potential clients that are coming in, is I send them a podcast from Steve Hardison.
mm,
And I just say, like, if space and time allows, it's about a 90-minute podcast, I would be so curious your thoughts and takeaways after you listen to this. Because I think anyone who's in the coaching space knows Steve Hardison is a very big personality.
mm,
He gives and loves so hard that you can feel that in anything that he's been recorded on. And so I think also it takes our brain to this very like curious I wonder place that I think we don't really allow ourselves to go into as much. So
mm,
I think that can really unlock some stuff. And then typically like after that, what I do is I gift the client The Ultimate Coach by Steve Hardison. And
mm,
we do this really I've had 2 experiences with it so far, and each time has been this just it feels like a different vibration for your body and mind.
mm,
What I typically do at that point, is the back cover of the book they read in the first 2 pages, and there's this really beautiful exchange of just the smallest vulnerability, and the way that I preface that is when I'm sitting with the client, I have a request. Would you read me the back cover? And they'll kind of look at you like, I didn't know reading was a thing I had to do out loud. And I think a lot of people, we go back to like grade school and
Yeah.
like teachers gonna call on you and you're like, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, and you're not
Yeah.
ready. But what I found to be really powerful is when I hand that book over, I make that request, I immediately follow it with, this is a place of no judgment.
Mm.
You can, anything can happen here and it's okay. And I think sometimes people just need to hear that. It's not dissimilar to have an idea of how something might look. And you just feel a little bit more confident with little pieces that you have. So when I have done that experience, I have one client I'm thinking of specifically. We're in the middle of that, and I could tell this client was really nervous. And so I stopped and I went a little off script and I said, "Can I share something with you? Is there something I'd like to show you vulnerability in both directions?" And they were like, "Yeah." And so my document was newly done. And so if you don't know what the document is, right, I spent a lot of time going through judgments that I had, both that I'd created, maybe my family had created, life had created, whatever it was. And then I spent time, finding out for what is more true. And so my I am statements are, I am unlimited grace for myself. My judgment was probably something to the effect of I can do nothing right. Right. And so these two things manifest over, and I shared it was my very first time ever speaking my document out loud to someone else. And I told her, I was like, a vulnerability is about to like really level up over here. And she started crying
Mm.
like halfway through. And I was like, I get done reading it and she's like, I would have never, I wouldn't have thought that that was how you felt about yourself. Like, I can't believe like you have to have that in your document. And then she's like, no judgment. And I'm like, you're totally fine to talk
Mm.
however you talk, right? But so I think, I'm excited to see how it all unfolds. I'll say right now, as far as it has gone, is very straightforward communication, love and kindness, and a very vulnerable state for myself. And I think if a coach can show you that vulnerability, especially as they're starting to get their legs under them on who they're being, I think that's a pretty powerful practice I'll come out with.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
To reference back to Jamie, one of the things he trains us on is go there first, right?
Hmm.
So if you want your clients to be vulnerable with you, you need to be
Yeah.
vulnerable with them first. And
Right. And I think there's a lot of places where like I'll call myself out. When I first started the process of like working on myself,
mm,
pretty I was pretty unsure,
mm,
and I was like, well, okay, I'll try, and like one foot in, one foot out. And I'll never forget my coach was like, as you're going through your agreements, you have to agree to be 100% vulnerable. And I sat just like I'm sitting looking at you and I paused and I was like, what? I'm like, and he's like, read all of them. I go back, I read it again, and I'm like, I've never done that before.
mm.
Why would I do that with you? And I didn't mean it in this
Yeah,
confrontational way,
yeah,
but he just looked right at me. He's like, you're not gonna do it for me, you're gonna do it for you. And
yeah,
I was like, okay,
yeah,
well, here we go, right?
yeah. Well, it's funny when you said you told your client, this is a no judgment zone. I heard that a couple different ways. One was, you won't be judging them, but you're also
Hmm.
inviting them not to judge themselves.
Right. Which
Yeah,
might be the bigger of the two,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I've just started going through the document process myself, so
oh,
it's
yay. Good for you.
I was quite got off to a bit of a slow start, and next thing you know, I had like 5 pages of judgments, like,
Yeah.
and the deeper I went, the darker they got,
Yeah.
and now like today I was telling you what it was my daughter's university graduation day, but we're driving to the ceremony. I don't know, we had got into some conversation about work stories or something, and I started telling some story about an old boss I had or whatever. Anyway, I realized after the fact, it's like, wow, I got to go write that one down when I get home because like that was
Yeah.
so judgy.
And I think I don't know what the process has been like for you. It was, I think every emotion I've ever felt in all different directions,
Yeah,
and it was like to pull the judgments out was one thing for me to see, right?
mm,
And then knowing that eventually I'm going to share this with someone else, I was like, oh Lord,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's powerful though, right?
And the other thing that resonated for me was you were talking about the negative self talk. kind of stuff.
Hmm.
I'd read Steve Chandler and Trevor Timbuk's book, The Power of Systems.
Hmm.
And one of the things I spotted for myself was, um, especially in the world of physical fitness and working out and walking and eating properly, I was using the beat myself up system.
Yeah.
So it was effective at getting me to do stuff, but it didn't feel
Yep.
very good. Um,
No.
and ultimately I decided it was counterproductive. So I've kind of retired the beating myself up system. And
Yeah, I'm glad you did. Good for
yeah,
you. I think
yeah,
I lived there too. Like when I was losing weight and there's so many things, like so many things in the world that are pushing, pulling you towards it. And, if I missed a workout, there was shame and guilt and like all this negative talk. And I'm like, what is going on?
yeah,
But it's not until now. I mean, I've lost that 100 pounds. It's been off for about 20 years. And even in my judgments, it was
mm,
still front row center,
yeah,
So you're like, man, if that's even driving the bus one day out of 365, that's too
yeah,
many.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm wondering if you could share one or two stories with us about how coaching has helped. I mean, you've already kind of shared some of your own personal
Yeah.
story, but some of your clients or some of the transformations that you've seen people go through.
Yeah, so I have quite a few clients that I have one I'm thinking of specifically, and she is like the head of an investment firm, and she's worked very hard to get there. And she's a personal training client of mine, and she'd come in, and it's a industry for her that has a lot of males around. And so
Mm,
she's always trying to figure out like how do you navigate being a female in this role? And so organically through just conversation, she ran up into some just work issues. I always think like communication is what creates and can fix most things. Even if it's communication you don't want to do, right? It's if
yeah.
people are on the same page, we're at least rolling in the right direction. And she came to one morning and she was like, I don't think I can work out. I'm like, okay, cool. She's like, can we just walk? I'm like, yeah, let's walk, and she's got a lot she needs to talk about. She's processing. And so I'm watching her, as we walk a lap, it starts getting a little clearer. This is the thing she's struggling with. And so um, we get a couple more laps in and she's like, I think I think I don't feel good about what I'm doing, and I'm like, okay, so let's talk about that. And just like the ability to be able to help someone, and I'm saying very little,
Mm,
it's just that you're a person that's listening and you're hearing what they have to say and you're just being a place for them, a safe place. And what ended up happening for her is, she leaves and she's like, thank you so much. And I'm kind of like, I don't know how much I just did,
yeah.
but like, you're so welcome. And she ends up going and like calling a meeting with the CEO, and she's like, I'd like to talk about how you guys have been communicating with me, this and that. So she messages me and she's like, oh my gosh, I just did this really scary thing. And I'm like, good for you. Like, what are you going to say? She's like, I have no idea. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, well, that's okay. But you like set this appointment for yourself. And, it ends up where, they get on the phone with her on Zoom and she's, terrified. And she's like, I just sat there and I just kept thinking, like, Katie said, just be you, just
mm,
be you. And I was like, did I say that? Like, I mean, I knew I did, but there was
yeah.
no script. So it was just like, what are you picking up? And, they got on and immediately were like, we are so sorry for how you've been treated.
Mm,
And I mean, she was like, my jaw hit the ground. I was like, well, so after that happens and she goes through this experience, I was like, why do you think that was different? And she was like, I think because I went in curious. I didn't go in angry. And I was like, and you could be angry and it would be okay.
mm,
But if we're going through anger to get there, it doesn't lead us correctly,
mm,
right? It can, like I say a lot of the time, if I'm emotional, I'm probably not trustworthy of myself right then because I'm most likely gonna respond in that emotion and it's probably anger or fear, and neither one of those I communicate well through.
mm,
Maybe some people do, but not so much for me. So with that client, it was so neat because she gained a voice for herself. And it wasn't through this, no giant mountains had to move. It more just had to be for her that she felt clear in what she needed. And I think for the first time, she actually trusted herself to make that happen for herself, which was pretty neat.
Yeah. It's an amazing
Yeah.
story. Well, I love
Yeah.
too. And earlier you talked about um, being in conversations and listening, and then that kind of theme came up again in this story.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
that that's something I see is very interesting in coaching is, some sessions I have with people, I do more talking than they do, but quite often they're the ones doing all the talking, and you're just holding
Hmm.
space for them. And there is something magical that happens when they hear themselves, like the
Hmm.
verbalization of things, and then hear it through their own ears versus just inside their own head, and
Yeah.
it changes the way they relate to it. Yeah, it's significant, and it's that safe feeling that they have to be able to communicate that and put that out in the world and feel
Yeah.
like they're not going to get you know torn apart because of it.
Right. Yeah, I do think my second one that comes to mind a lot that I want to make sure I share because it's probably, well, it is one of the coolest shares I could give.
Mm.
So I might as well give it, right?
Yeah, please do.
I'm a mom of a 14-year-old and a four gonna be 5-year-old. So I have a 10-year gap between my children. And despite what people think, they have a lot of similarities,
Mm.
even though they're very different in age. And my teenage son, this year for him was eighth grade. And in October, that this was right before I started my coaching with my coach. Grades were struggling. He was having a lot of issues with confidence, and lots of missing assignments and overwhelmed and all these things. And I was scared. Like I was fearful as a mom. I was like, oh my gosh, if he doesn't figure this out, like he's not going to do good in high school. And then, like go down the spiral that probably most parents have when
Yeah.
their kid is having a hard time, right? And so in that moment, we sit down and it's like, in my head, I'm like, how many times are we gonna have this conversation? Again, what probably every parent has said in the history of parenting. And I walked away from the conversation and I didn't feel good about it. I felt like this cannot be the best way to do it, and this is all I know. So like if I'm gonna become a better mom, I'm going to have to figure out anything that'll help it, right?
Mm.
So then simultaneously, that's when I messaged my now coach and said, I need to figure out how to be the best mom I can be, and we'll go back to the document a little bit because I love how things just interlace with themselves.
Yeah.
And one of my judgments was I'm a bad mom. And anyone that knows me, and I know this to be true for myself, and I hold it at the highest height that I can, I am a very loving mom. And I love my children arguably more than I used to love myself. Now I
Mm.
understand I have to love myself hugely to be able to love them big. And with my coach, I started figuring out these judgments. And I had a lot of judgments from my parents and how I was treated or how I felt in something. And I was so afraid for my son to feel like I did. I
Mm.
didn't even know what to do, And so we ended up, I'm working with my coach and I'm like, hey, something I like is really on my heart is like, I want to help be a better mom. I want my kids to be confident. I want them to wake up and be like, I am whatever it is, and
Mm.
so started with my coach in November. It's now June where we made it. We got through eighth grade, and I mean that in the most loving way, not like survived it.
Yeah.
And the last day of school, or the last day to turn stuff in, I'm like, I have that kind of anxiety. We've had lots of great conversations. At one point, he was really in his head about just negative, like you'd kind of said, right? Like we can sit in our thoughts and it can get so dark.
Mm.
And I watched that in my son. And I was probably a couple months into my document process. I had all my judgments in a notebook, and the next notebook's like my document's going to happen. And I went up to my room and I grabbed my judgment notebook and I brought it down. And I looked at my 14-year-old and I said, can I make a request? He's like, yeah, and like I said, he's in the thick of it. I'm like, you don't
Yeah.
have to look at me if you don't want to. Can I share my judgments with you? And
Mm.
it was one of the scariest things I've ever done. I'm about to show my 14-year-old, in my opinion, so much humility,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know how my kids see me.
Mm.
They see all of it, the every part of it. And I shared it with him and he started crying
Mm.
and didn't say anything. And I was like, would it be okay with you if I now share with you as far as my document has gotten?
Mm.
And I shared that with him. And my 4-year-old is right there listening. And my oldest looks up at me and he's like, Mom, you're the best mom ever. I
Mm,
can't believe you would ever think that you weren't. And then he goes so far to say, Mom, you're one of the funniest people I've ever met. You have the best smile. Like, I hope you always smile, and I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like, had I not, and it all comes back to that vulnerability, right? And I believe very strongly in that moment, something for our family shifted,
mm,
right? Because now it's like, we can have these conversations and it has become a co-creation of who we are. It's not mom being like, this is how it is, right? Which
yeah.
is what I would have done. 100%. I would have been like my way or the highway, and had all this fear, and fear is not going to lead me well. And when I switched that over to leading my family with love, like our entire family is different. And I'm very blessed in the sense of my husband is also doing the document journey and
Mm,
he has his own coach, and so it's like as we've watched these parallels shift in our family, when it comes down to who I will help anyone. I will help anyone who feels like they need something, but I would love to help parents,
mm,
like figure out like this is the hardest job I've ever done. It is the most important thing I've ever done. And I just hope that at the end of the day, my kids know that they're loved, and I think every parent wants that. I think it can feel different when you love yourself,
mm,
right? And then that spirals out. So my oldest ended up finishing his eighth grade year with all A's, and the B's that he had were 89.9%.
mm,
He made the Oregon All-State football team. Like he's so much more confident. And it's just through kind of that big ripple effect that's going through our family. And that, like I said, that's just one of my favorite stories. And so, moms want to talk about their kids every chance they get.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I can see why it would be a favorite for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, amazing. Yeah, I've got two kids, 22 and 20. My daughter just graduated and is looking
Yeah.
for a job and stuff. And I catch myself having conversations with her where I finish and I go back to my office and I go, man, do I sound like my dad?
And there's sometimes that's great,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah, and
because,
then
yep.
and then I'll rethink and then I'll go back and I'll say, okay, everything I told you earlier, just throw that in the garbage heap.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's the beauty of being human, right?
Yeah,
Like our actual ability to walk in and clean up a mess.
yeah,
Like how
absolutely.
powerful is that like in any role that you have in life, but especially as a parent.
Yeah,
Like I think, how different would my life have been with cleaning up messes
yeah,
anywhere, both for myself, my family, anyone.
yeah,
But it's, it only shifts when you're ready for it to shift. I think I'll be 40 in a couple months, and I'm like, okay, so I just lived 39 years and a half, kind of wandering around, right? And
yeah,
now we've found ourselves better. So
yeah, yeah. Well, that's one of the parts of the document process I'm loving is that like I actually look forward to a judgment revealing itself because it's like
yeah,
that. That's the because it's kind of like two sides of the coin. Like the one side of the coin is the judgment, but the other side of the coin is what's more true, and that
yeah.
lead. So that judgment is leading me to an awareness of a much better way of being in that
Yeah, and
area
do
in that
do
area of my
you
life.
find when you're doing it, like sometimes, it's that for what is more true is this, and you're like, okay, right? And then like as you do it a little bit more, like, I think of it like I have a shovel, right? And I'm
Yeah,
getting off the surface level, we're
yeah,
getting down a little bit further.
yeah,
And it's so I just feel like you can connect with it when it really hits something that you're like, oh, that's the one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's definitely layers to be peeled away and,
Hmm.
until you get to the core of it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. My experience with it too is like you like today, like I thought I kind of exhausted my list of judgments, and then I'm catching myself in a conversation spewing, in a light-hearted kind of storytelling
Yeah.
way, but still, it's like,
Yep.
wow, that's there's still something there that I haven't let go of yet
Yeah.
that I need to figure out and look at. So
And there's so much power in that catch, right?
yeah,
Because maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, depending on how long the journey's been, it would have just right? Been
Yeah.
right over yet?
Oh yeah,
Or
absolutely.
judgments, I feel like too, could be so, they're so creative
Yeah.
in how they hide behind humor or,
Mhm.
like, and I'm like, wow, oh, there it is. It's
Yeah.
still not pretty, but it's certainly trying to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the other thing I saw today with that particular story was, I don't know, how I use that to build myself up, make myself feel smarter or better
Yeah,
or more accomplished or something at the
right.
expense of this other person. And it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good either. Anyway,
Yeah,
but
you're like,
it's just
oh,
like, but yeah, I love that I can kind of observe myself in these behaviors
oh yeah.
and then use that as grist for the mill. So
Yeah, and then I think the grace for yourself becomes easier, right? It's just
yeah,
like any muscle. The more
yeah,
you use it, you're like, oh shoot, okay,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
actually not who I want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find too with my clients, like the more stuff I catch for myself in my language, the more I'm able to pick it up for other people in the language that they're using.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And language is so important.
yeah, and I've had a few recent experiences where you just catch this one little phrase or word and you point it out to somebody, and then you explore that with them, and it's like pulling that loose end of the thread, and the whole
Oh
thing
yeah.
kind of reveals itself and gets resolved. It's very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the most magical part of it all,
Yeah,
right? It's
absolutely.
not it's not overly complicated. It's actually quite simple. It's just not easy,
Yeah.
right?
If we had to boil this all down to one thing that you'd want people to take away from this conversation or one thing to know, what would that one thing be?
Oh man, I would say I think the biggest thing is be boldly vulnerable with yourself,
Mm,
right? Like it my life changed once I wasn't afraid of who I was. And I don't know if that was a subconscious thing. Maybe it was fear of like how other people would take it, right? But judgment, right? I did have a very big judgment where I cared what other people think. And that's not powerful for Katie,
mm,
and it turns out I actually am the hardest on myself, right? Compared to other people. And so I would say, in order to like really have big life change, like step into who you are, be vulnerable, find a coach that you think is going to help you transform, not just give information, right? There's so many avenues to change yourself in this life, and we only have one chance at it.
mm.
As in, like, we have one life, not like one day to figure it out
Yeah.
or one avenue to pick forever. But it's like, I mean, I think we all, and I'm guilty of this too, walk around thinking we have unlimited days, right?
Mm,
And I hope I do. I hope I get to live a very long time.
yeah.
But if I don't, like wouldn't it just be so much more magical for me and anyone I'm around to be love
Mm,
and just see the world from like like I said, I have a 4.5-year-old. Like, if I do my day the way my little guy does, my day is so magical and fun, and I'm like, okay, so vulnerable and find your child like fun, right? Like those,
yeah.
they're probably different ends of the spectrum, but I think they're powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love when I think back to my kids at those ages and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, and when I talk to clients who have young kids, I say, just watch your kids, like, because you have an expert in your house
Yeah.
on how to be present, how to enjoy the
Mhm.
moment, how to reset your system. Um,
Yeah.
all those things are right there, live and in person for you all the time. We can learn so
Yeah.
much from our kids. Yeah.
Well, and their ability to reset is probably one of the most magnificent things I've ever seen. My 4.5-year-old, the other night was getting ready to go to bed, and he's like talking to my husband. He's like, "I hate my mom," and my husband's like, "What?" Like, and he's like, "Yeah." And so, we're trying to help him understand language, right? Like,
Yeah.
hate is this really big word, and probably not exactly right here, but we're gonna just try to listen. And he walks
Yeah.
in, and he's like, "Mom, I hate you." I was like, "Oh, wow. My goodness." I was like, "That hurts my heart. What happened?" And he's like, "Tonight, you took my stick and it cut me right here on my hand." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I hurt you." He's like, "Well, now you do, and I guess I don't hate you." But it's like that.
Yeah.
It goes, and it's like if another human walked up to Cage like, "I hate you," it might have felt a little different,
Yeah.
but it's like their ability to just quick reset, or he's on the playground and him and his friend get in a fight and they punch each other and like, hey, you want to be best friends? And you're
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah. I know. My son, when he was little, he could be shooting tears, like literally. And then you just look over here and they start laughing.
Yeah. Kind of
And
like a crazy
I was
person
like,
sometimes.
yeah,
Like,
it's like,
what is
what?
going
How
on?
did he do that?
Yeah, it's there's just a degree of such beautiful innocence, that like life is just, oh, we screwed it up. Let's just change it and go forward. And you're like, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
all right.
absolutely. Well, if people are interested in finding out more about you and seeing what you're up to in the world, where can they look you up?
Oh yeah. So I am on Facebook and Instagram. My gym is on both of those. My gym is Formidable Strength and Conditioning.
Mm,
Which when I named it, I was like, this is the longest named ever spell on the phone.
mm,
But I like it. And then my coaching business is lifechangingwork.com.
mm. Nice.
Yeah.
I love both names.
Thank you.
Formidable. Formidable. I like that. Is that a line
It's
in the
funny too.
document? I am formidable.
It pops up all the time. And my coach is so sweet. He's always like, you are a formidable force, like in the most loving way, And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I'm not even sure I totally knew what that word meant when I named my gym that. So it's been fun to see. Like, I think the universe is always at play,
Yeah,
and it's so cool.
absolutely. Well, I've really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit today, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel your energy for sure. So I will.
Well, I'm so glad. It is a thing. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you.